Thunderball is a diving expedition with 007 that leaves much to be desired. Just the name has a certain weight to it. The expectation that follows a Bond film, especially one starring Sean Connery, can sometimes set the bar pretty high. However, as I dove into this installment of the Bond franchise, I found myself surfacing with mixed feelings. Let's be honest, it's a bit of a mixed bag. For starters, there's the recurring theme of SPECTRE causing mayhem, Bond getting in the mix, and the usual cocktail of exotic locations, flashy gadgets, and femme fatale. This time around, it's a nuclear bomb threatening the peace if a hefty ransom isn't met. Classic Bond, you'd say. Yet, despite the familiarity, Thunderball struggles to stay afloat. The film kicks off with a compelling theft sequence involving stolen nukes, which I must admit grips your attention. However, as the plot unfolds, the excitement somehow fizzles out. Sure, there's a tantalizing underwater brawl that's visually engaging, but it becomes an endurance test more than a thrill. You'd think a showdown in a runaway boat would inject some adrenaline, but it feels contrived and lacks the rawness that could have made it gripping. Not a single drop of blood amidst all that chaos. Now let's talk about the leading ladies. Martine Bezek's sneaky portrayal adds some intrigue, and Luciana Paoluzzi's allure is undeniable. But as much as I appreciated their performances, something about their characters felt a tad forced. Paoluzzi as a tough gal is a stretch. Then there's Sean Connery reprising his role as James Bond, doing what he does best, being Bond. While he's undeniably charismatic and fits the role like a glove, there's this feeling of stagnation. Bond remains unaltered and unchanging, as if frozen in time. In a rapidly evolving world, his static character feels a bit lackluster. Let's touch on the underwater sequences. While some rave about Riku Browning's underwater cinematography, for me, those long, drawn-out underwater scuffles were akin to a form of water torture. Sure, it might have been impressive at the time, but the slow-motion clashes felt more like endurance tests than exciting action sequences. It's not all doom and gloom though. The film certainly checks some of the quintessential Bond boxes: action, gadgets, stunning locales, and yes, Connery's hairy torso, which oddly gets applause. These elements might serve as a distraction for many, but Thunderball exposes some weaknesses in the Bond formula. I've revisited this film recently, hoping to rediscover its charm. Yet it felt like a slog, especially with those repetitive underwater scenes and an obnoxious portrayal of Bond. His habitual tendencies towards non-consensual encounters don't sit well in a modern context. So where does Thunderball stand in the Bond universe? It's a bit subpar, slightly tired, and unfortunately, doesn't hold up well against its predecessors. While it might delight die-hard Bond aficionados with its formulaic elements, for me, it's a lackluster addition to the series.